The way it's often taught, have faith, it's an excuse to compensate for ignorance and naivete.
It does require you to question your foundation.
Thoroughly face the doubts and the fears.
That you have stronger faith because you have walked through the shadow of death or doubt.
If you walk the entire labyrinth, you actually come back and have stronger faith.
Being willing to face those greatest fears that you have, that is the thing.
You could throw all your doubts and fears and anger and everything at it, and truth just stands.
One of the most controversial things Jesus taught was this idea that the kingdom of God is within you.
Question all of it and say, what are the motives behind this? Where did this begin? Why is it the way that it is? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Extraordinary Family Life Podcast. We're your hosts, Greg and Rachel Denning, and today we are going to try to be controversial and
we're going to try to be.
We're going to try to be. No, we will be. And probably ruffle some feathers and fire some shots at your sacred cows. And
we like killing cows.
We've got to challenge the narratives we're buying into and perpetuating and the things we've just accepted. Now, the interesting irony, we did this, we still do it, and so many people do it. They come along, well, actually, some people really want to fit in. They want to just give me the rules, tell me what to do, and I'll do it. We hear that a lot. Just tell me exactly what to do, and I'll do it. They just want to follow the rules. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, as long as you have good rules to follow. But it's easy to get manipulated and controlled that way. And then there's others like, yes, freedom, no, I won't conform. And they fight for their independence, but then they're total conformist to other things, maybe their mother. So the guy, fights against all kinds of, he's like
tyranny.
The epitome of civil disobedience, but his mother says to do something, and that's the gospel law. And he does it whether it's a good idea or not, as just an example. But I think our invitation today is challenge all of it and stop conforming to structures, organizations, rules, systems, anything that doesn't serve you. What we're not saying, and this is so important, please hear this, because I don't want this to be misunderstood. We are not saying throw out all tradition and all rules and all guidelines. We're not saying that, because some of them are so good and it's what keeps society functioning. Society functions because there are rules and guidelines and traditions, and some traditions are so beautiful, so beautiful. That's one of the reasons we love to travel the world, is we go see the traditions in each country, in each place and culture. It's like, this is beautiful. And some of them are ancient, but then some of them are really dumb, and you're like, really? Why are they still doing that? And then you stop and say, well, wait, why am I still doing what I do? And we pick up and inherit these things, whether it's from family or community or, man, from our high school experience. I mean, how many traditions do we pick up in the public school system that you just keep perpetuating? And you do it in sports and politics and religion. It's just everywhere. So today, my message is I want you to intentionally, with wisdom, question all of it and say, what are the motives behind this? Where did this begin? Why is it the way that it is? And am I blindly seeing things? So this is particularly true with church. Is the church is doing certain things and it has their traditions, and people want to conform because they want to be good. They want to be righteous. They want to be spiritual. They want to be close to God. They want to do the right thing. And so they conform because they believe their church is the church, right? That it's the way. And so the danger there is we start kind of narrowing the lens with which we're even reading from the scriptures. Because you go, it's confirmation bias. You go looking in the scriptures for confirmation of
what you already believe.
Yeah, what you already believe, what's happening in your church. And so you go look, there it is. And you skip over verses or entire chapters, massive sections that are actually teaching the opposite. Right there in the scripture, teaching the opposite of what your church is teaching, but you're like, I'm going to go along with my church. And I think that's an excellent example. And I don't know if we start there, we'll come back to it. But what Jesus taught, how he actually lived, was as a nonconformist, a contrarian, a rebel,
against authority.
He was a disruptor, and he fought adamantly against organized religion, against institutions, governments, like all of it. It's all there. And it's very evident and very clear. But then each in their church thinks, no. Like what he was teaching is what we teach in our church. Our church is the way. Anyways, I know I'm already firing shots at your sacred cows, but stick with us. Listen to this. Just kind of walk through this episode today to hear and kind of just wrap your head around this message.
Well, and in some ways, we're not even sure what we're talking about. We're just literally exploring these ideas here, which we like
Out
to
loud
do
with
out
each
loud.
other.
But for sure, I think when you do dig into it, specifically in this case, the scriptures more, I think one of the most controversial things Jesus taught was this idea that the kingdom of God is within you. Ultimately, that you are the source. You are connected to the source of truth, authority, power, which gives you independence, which gives you sovereignty. And ultimately, that is a quote unquote dangerous idea to institutions, whether that's a political institution, whether that's a religious institution. Like in many ways, all institutions and systems are challenged by that idea that the individual is the ultimate authority, especially when it comes to their own life.
Well, their own
Right?
salvation. And if we step back and say, hey, wait, is salvation a group experience or is it an individual experience? And I think everybody would say, well, salvation is personal. It's individual.
You can replace salvation with lots of different words. That could be success, that could be health and well-being, that could be mental, emotional, spiritual. Because, it's the thing that you always love to talk about. The little joke that we like to have is that nobody can do your push-ups for you. Like if you want to get in shape, you're the only one that can eat the food and do the push-ups. But in some ways, and maybe this is kind of what you're talking about today and where you're going with this, in some ways, it's like we don't take that same principle and apply it to everything else in our life. We think, I'll outsource my spirituality to church, or I'll outsource
So as long as I go to church, then it's being taken care of for me.
Yes. I'll outsource my education to the school.
My kids' education.
Well, even think about it. Your own education. You've outsourced it to the school.
'Cause you go to school.
Went to school.
Right, exactly.
You graduated. You're done.
Babe, I have my diploma and I have a degree. And so I went, I checked the boxes, I took the test. I done got my education.
Right. That's because that type of thinking means you have outsourced your education and growth to an institution, to a system outside of you. And if you reword this of like, I don't know what you could replace kingdom of God that relates to education, like that's within you. Your growth and development is within you. And it's as though people do that and they graduate and then they stop learning. Like they spend the rest of their life.
Yeah, I got my education.
And have this aversion to like personal growth and development as though it's a swear word or a bad thing, right? Because I'm educated. I got educated. What else do I need? But it's like we have that about everything. And then you're right. We do it about our kids' education. We outsource that instead of teaching them that ultimately they are the source of their education. They are in charge of their education.
Literally have to be autodidacts. Like an autodidact it's an individual is responsible for their own education. And that's true. Education is individual.
Right. Because it's like that quote I love. It's lighting a fire, not filling a bucket. You can't have someone else filling your bucket and call that an education, call that religion, call that spirituality, call that like whatever it is, health and wellness. We can't be filling buckets here. We have to be lighting fires, and that fire is within.
So you can walk around, you and I as teachers, mentors, leaders, we can walk around with a torch and offer it.
Sparks.
But the individual has to accept it.
And then like nurture it and fan the flame.
And then feed it. Exactly.
And all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like that's an individual process. So even in that analogy right there, there can be a place for school.
Absolutely.
There can be a place for religion. There can be a place for politics and government. But the problem is, and I think maybe this is the main message of this episode, is that when we allow the system to become the replacement for our own inner direction, our
A-
own inner guide, our
and
own intuition.
individual responsibility.
And exactly
Yeah.
our individual responsibility. We give it up and we're like, oh, well, I'm going to church. So I'm checking that box.
Right. This even comes down to reading a book. So I'm like, oh, I have the book and I'm just going to be a passive learner here. I'll read what this author says. And then that's
Right.
okay. Now I've read.
Right. Rather than thinking about it or even
Arguing.
arguing with
Yeah.
it.
With the author. It's like, oh, wait, why? And
Mhm.
let's push back. Let's test this. Were you right? Were you wrong? What do other authors think about you? Why did you think this way? And if I get my own experience, I'm going to push against this. Real learning, real growth, real spirituality, real health all has a big price tag on it. And so you're right. We can't even outsource it to a book at that level because it's still the individual's responsibility to wrestle with it and learn from it, learn with it. So then, and I think that I love how you said that, because then that's a great way to look at everything we're doing in life is I would say it's subconscious. I don't think people are deliberately saying, you know what, I'm not going to do anything except go sit at church. And if I sit there, then I'll probably be saved. So I'm good. It's more subconscious. It's like, well, if I go to church, then whatever, my salvation, I'll be a better person. If
It
I send
comes
my
down to
kids to
checking the
school, they'll get an
box.
education.
To me, it comes down to checking the box because I think it's just human nature. Like you're saying before, I think there's a part of all of us that's like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
We like
We
that.
want to make it simple and easy, which, okay, to be fair, like that can be a valuable thing. Like we want to simplify our life so we're not constantly every single day saying, what do I do today about my education? We want a checklist. We want something to do. The problem is then it becomes rote, it becomes automatic, it becomes meaningless, it becomes transactional instead of transformational.
Yep.
And so that, I guess, is the question or call or challenge today. It's like, how do we get back to more of the transformational, whether that is with education or our children's education or with our relationships, our marriage, or with our parent
Health.
child relationships or with our health or with our religion and spirituality. Like, how do we get back to transformation rather than just transaction?
Yes, yes, yes. Because I guess at the core of all of this, if we're not very deliberate and intentional about each aspect of our life, then it becomes thoughtless, mindless, empty, automated, right? So it becomes subconscious and we're doing it. And here's how you can all test this. So even if everyone's listening, so and you're skeptical, you're like, ooh, you Dennings, what are you saying? What is this dangerous, heretical talking? It's easy to test. So even as you're listening to us, don't
Just take
do
our
the same thing. Don't just take our word for it. Don't just sit here and listen like, okay, the Dennings are telling me what to do and I'll do it. Like, don't do that. Like chew on it and try to disprove it and then try to prove it. So when you take an idea and try to prove it, it's like, okay, well, if going to school and getting good grades, like if that is a formula that actually truly works, then everyone who went through and got good grades is genuinely educated and we're better off in life. And then you start looking through, you're like, that's not true. And then you're like, well, if everyone who attends church regularly, and I mean, they know the right answers, they say the right things, they check all the boxes, did they have like all the outcomes and results they want? No, not even
But
close.
wait, Greg, not everybody has all the outcomes and results they want.
Okay, you're right. So then is it all futile? Nobody can have it all. So what's the point? Or is it?
And I don't even think
That's good, Rach.
Well-
This is like it's you strip away everything philosophically here. It's like, what's the point?
right. And, obviously, I don't think you're saying this, that the ultimate goal or the ultimate success is that you have it all. That's not what you're after. But I think you are saying is that you are on a journey of progressing in the most important areas of life. That's what you mean, I think, by
Well,
having it all.
it was
That you're not just like financially successful, you also have a great relationship, a marriage, and great relationships with your children, and you're spiritually developed and you're healthy and fit.
and mentally healthy and fit
Right.
emotionally. Yeah.
That is what you mean, I think, right? By quote unquote having it all, but it also doesn't mean you've obtained the pinnacle of all those things,
Right.
but that you're working on
Towards
them.
it. So Earl Nightingale said that success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal, which I love
Exactly.
that.
So it's
Progressive
progressive, it's active, it's
realization of a worthy
dynamic.
ideal. Jesus said, be perfect. Like, we like to skip that one
Mhm.
because we're like, well, I'm not perfect. And we like, I've heard so many people water that down. Oh, he was referring, oh, it was that. And if you look at the original text and the word, the meaning there was whole, complete. So
So that's the holistic
exactly.
part that you're talking about. It's not like have it all, you have the Lamborghini and the fancy car and this and that. You're talking about mental, emotional, spiritual, social, physical, financial,
Financial.
and that progressive movement
Yes,
towards
exactly.
those things.
Towards those things. But
Towards those
palpable progress, not I'm working on it.
Mhm.
And the church is a hospital for sick people
That
who are
never seem to
always
get
sick.
better.
Does anybody ever heal? Like, are you kidding me? At what point are you whole and
Right.
healthy and never? I'll always stay here and be sick. I'll always be wicked. You're like, whoa, what? Let's
Right.
go.
Which that's a whole nother discussion.
Hey there, this is Greg Denning. We want to reach as many people as possible and help as many families as possible with these conversations. And we want to keep this podcast ad-free forever. You can help us do that by subscribing on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, your favorite platform, and on YouTube. And leave a quick review and share your favorite episodes with friends and family. It makes a big difference. Thank you for being a part of this very important movement.
Yeah, but there should be, in my mind, there should be progress. Like if you are pursuing a worthy ideal, whether that's at church or in your education or with your finances or in your marriage, there should be palpable progress.
Yep.
Or else, the way I think, something's wrong. You're not doing something
Yep.
right. So if progress is not occurring, something's off. And for me, that is one of my major challenges with religion in general. Some, not necessarily all religions, some religions in general, some Christian religions, but I would
Public
say
education being one
all.
of those religions.
Yeah, well, yeah, even that public education is
Modern
that,
medicine, like the whole
yeah,
medical field in the US,
like
it's a
cure cancer.
religion.
Like, how long are we going to do this for? Like, it's literally become a
Vaccinations.
business.
Oh my goodness.
It's become a business. And so the palpable progress is not there. And same in religion. If there's not this progress that's being made, something's off because we should be making
Yep.
progress, not just maintaining the status quo by
Exactly.
checking the transactional
Yep.
boxes.
So again, listener, test this, disprove it, and then prove it, and then disprove it, and then prove it. Look at it, say, hey, if I check all the boxes, look around. The people who are checking the boxes, are they making palpable progress? And you'll see that the vast majority of the time, no. Now, is there a benefit? Yes. Rachel and I talk about that all the time. It's like, should we get rid of public school? No way. No way. Because the masses need a place to go.
Right.
Because
There's
that
a
is better than
benefit
nothing.
for it in society as a whole.
Yes. Should we get rid
Same
of
with religion.
modern medicine? No. Should we get rid of churches? No way. No way. Like they all serve a purpose. But I guess we're talking today to a group of classadelic bohemian erudites, meaning people who want to question the status quo, who are tired of checking the boxes and who are looking around, but maybe afraid to speak up or step back and be like, wait a minute, is everybody just drinking the Kool-Aid here? Like, what's going on? Why aren't we getting far, far better results?
Right.
Why do we keep hearing the same messages? Why does this always seem like an echo chamber? And wait a minute. And every once in a while, you're reading along and you're like, wait, Jesus said that? That's not what I've been taught my whole life. Or you do a deep dive into education and you start really, wait, what? The school
Isn't this
system
mass
was
destruction?
full of crap. Mass instruction, vaccinations. I'm so excited about this. More and more research is being done. Like people are really pushing back now.
Well, it's being revealed. The
Revealed, yeah.
research has been done.
COVID was a catalyst for everyone to start, well, not
Yeah.
everyone, but for real thinkers, for nonconformists to start saying, hey, wait a minute.
What?
What's going on here? Like they're pushing, this is all money trail. Now they're even pushing harder on traditional vaccinations that everyone just kind of accepted the narrative. And they're going like, whoa, 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 whoa. All of this crap is just a money trail. In fact, I saw somebody yesterday saying the same thing about veterinary medicine. You know, take your healthy animals for a regular vet checkup. And then they're just giving all this crap. It's like, this is such a business scheme.
Sound like a conspiracy theorist, Greg.
Or
then you discover that they're just conspiracies.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, one of the memes I saw recently that is accurate is that if you're over the age of 35, you have had fewer vaccines in your entire life than a 6-month-old baby is required to have
because
today.
they keep pushing more and more and more and more and more without evidence, without need, without the science behind it.
I think I could actually do a whole episode on vaccines. Maybe we'll do that in the future. But,
I could too. I think, and again, I know we're firing shots at sacred cows right now, and people were like, you crazy knuckleheads, like you've lost your minds and jumped off the edge of the flat earth and whatever. But
it's the non-vaxxers that believe in the flat earth, baby.
We're
getting confused.
We're inviting you to challenge your assumptions and challenge. We're inviting you to do it because we do it. We have done it. We are doing it.
Well, and I think one of the reasons why people don't do this more often is because it is actually scary and uncomfortable. And in fact, sometimes terrifying.
May I add? They have seen evidence of people questioning it whose lives unravel.
Yes.
And so they think, well, if I question it, that's
what
the
will
result.
And I think that's especially true. I mean, that can be true with education and homeschooling. That can be true with religion.
It can be true with medicine.
Medicine.
There's all these
people
scary
who
stories.
walk away from it and then they die because, like there's that whole series on, I think, Netflix, the apple cider vinegar one. I mean, I felt like it was a very interesting story of this woman who pretended she had cancer and then pretended she was cured by it from natural remedies. But to me, the underlying propaganda that was being shared is like, no natural remedies work. Trust the system, right? It's that kind of stuff that's very subtle. And unless you...
That series must have been funded by the pharmaceutical company.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Not at all. I wouldn't either.
But like, that sounds crazy for us to be talking about that. But the more you start learning and going down the quote unquote rabbit holes or whatever you want to call them, which this is something we've been doing for 20 years. And I no longer consider it a rabbit hole. It's just like, oh, this is called truth. The more you realize that this kind of stuff is going on all the time.
Yep.
Behind the scenes. It's not just in the movies.
This is
the
hilarious
movies get the ideas from real life.
Right, from real life. And people, like, if you talk to people and like, hey, do you believe that there are like secret combinations, like secret conspiracies happening in business and government? They're like, oh yeah, 100%. Like, even the scriptures talk about that. Oh, so it's happening. Okay, so let me tell you, the big pharma, no, they would never. How could you say such things? You're like, wait, what? You literally think big pharma's like in it for your health and fitness? Do you think the government cares about your well-being? Do you think anybody gives a crap about you?
Doctors aren't paid to give vaccines to children? What?
It's like, no, man. But we wanna hold our sacred cows and we want to say, well, yeah, that's totally true, but not in my little...
Not in my world.
Not in my world, in my narrative. Not the one that I hold on to.
Right.
You know.
So back to this idea that it becomes terrifying to do this because it does require you to question your foundations.
I would say that's the only... That is the path to capital T truth.
Yes.
You have to examine the scary parts,
right?
The threatening parts.
And I think especially if we could use medicine as an example and talk about big pharma. We can also use religion and talk about that. You start questioning, let's say, your religion, whatever it is, that becomes terrifying because everything you've been taught to believe, everything you have believed, everything you've built your life on is now suddenly at risk. And I get that. Like, I understand that's terrifying. What we are saying is it's also liberating. And it does not require your life to be destroyed either. I guess that's the other
Well, and
argument.
especially if you walk the entire labyrinth.
Yes.
If you walk the entire labyrinth, you actually come back and have stronger faith.
Yes. And you may come back, and I think we talked about this in the last episode. You may come back to the exact same place you were and keep doing the same things you were doing, but you have stronger faith because you have walked through the shadow of death or doubt, right? You've
Yep.
walked that path and it actually makes you
Yes.
stronger
Yes.
because you were willing to face the darkness and the doubt.
And I would say, like we were talking about a moment ago, we're not whole. Perfect is the word they use in the Bible. You're not whole. You're not complete. You're not integral until you've walked the labyrinth.
Yes,
And
100%.
in order to do that, you have to go through all the scary parts.
Yes.
There's those old maps says, "Here there be dragons."
Right.
You've got to walk through the part of the labyrinth that has dragons.
Yeah.
That scares the crap out of
Well,
you. That actually questions the core things you've held on to.
Right. Like I remember for me, one of them was evolution. Like, I'd been raised being taught that evolution wasn't true. It couldn't be true. If it was true, then
There's
God
no
didn't
God.
exist.
Right.
And when I started to question that and then realized, well, no, evolution is true, I realized, guess what? God can still exist if evolution is true. Like they're not mutually exclusive.
Well, I guess what helped you with that is this Christian scientist. Well, he wasn't from the Christian Scientist Church. He was a scientist who was Christian. And he said, hey, they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
And he also said something, or it was on a podcast of his where he said something like, God's not afraid of your questions.
Exactly.
Like he can handle whatever questions and doubts you have.
So can truth.
Exactly.
Like truth is just there. Like you could throw all your doubts and fears and anger and everything at it, and truth just stands there. Like you can't break truth. You can break yourself against it, but you can't break it. Truth will stand on its own.
Yes. So another thing that came to my mind is one of the things Jordan Peterson likes to say is that, and again, this is a legend, but I think it teaches principles. Like supposedly in the search for the Holy Grail, like King Arthur and the knights, when they went out to go search for the actual Grail, which represents whatever, a worthy ideal, a noble pursuit, that they each looked at the forest and at the place that was the darkest and most frightening to them, that's where they began their search. That's where they started. So they looked at what was frightening to them. They looked at what was terrifying.
To each one individually.
Yep. And decided to pursue that in order to find the Holy Grail, to find that ideal. So going back to this idea of walking the labyrinth and being willing to face those greatest fears that you have, that is the thing. And I love how you connected it to being perfect or whole. That is the thing that develops you and makes you more whole, helps you to walk that labyrinth. You and I have talked about this many times that we've met people, around the world and in religion that are good people. They really are. But yet, as we've talked about it, we've said they're good, but there's something missing. And ultimately, what we realized was a lack of whole development.
Exactly.
A lack of walking that full labyrinth and going to all the scary places and all the scary doubts and all the
they
scary...
never went there. And so that is all like, it's like missing.
Right. It's like a map that's missing.
Yeah.
Here there be dragons. Like
exactly.
They don't know what's over there. Because
they won't even walk to the edge.
Yeah. They've only developed in this one part, this one area. And so while they are good, quote unquote, we've also talked about that in reality, they're not really good because, as Jordan Peterson also says, you can't be, well, he uses it in relation to being a dangerous man, but I think the principle carries over. You can't really be a dangerous man unless you're actually capable of violence and choose instead to sheathe your sword and not use it.
But you know
That's what
how to
makes
use
you
it.
good. But you know how to use the sword
Isn't the same true with education? You're not truly
or
educated
religion.
and you're not truly spiritual or religious unless you can thoroughly face the doubts and the fears
The
and
hard questions.
the hard questions and trying to disprove what you believe. Like to understand a subject, you need to read those in favor and those against, and then have your own internal wrestle
Mhm.
and dialogue, and then talk with others who are in favor and who are
Mhm.
against. That's the educational piece. But
Right.
most of us are like, well, no, I'm just
That's
going to
the
read.
development
I'm going to
piece.
read those who are in favor, and I would never read those who are
Right.
against.
And unfortunately, that's what's pushed or promoted, encouraged in many organizations and systems and institutions because they want to control the people, maybe.
Right. And so we have to ask that question, like,
Right.
what's going on here?
Why are
What's
we
the
not
motive?
interested as the organization as a whole in fully developing the people, in fully perfecting them
As
through that
individuals.
walk of the labyrinth as
Yeah.
individuals, rather than encouraging them to not ask those hard questions,
Yeah.
to not pursue the difficult doctrines? Why are we doing that? What is the ultimate
Because, Rachel,
purpose?
it's impossible to herd cats.
That's true.
And think about it as an organization, you're like, the ideal outcome, the aim should be to make every individual
Autonomous,
autonomous cats. We're going to call them cats because
spiritual cats.
spiritual cats, because they can't be controlled. They
It's
can't be
true.
manipulated. They can't be herded. They'll
And they have
do
their mind about
what
what they're
they will
going to do.
do. Exactly. We just heard the other night. It was so fun that I guess they
It was on Mythbusters.
Mythbusters, they
literally
took some
tried to-
professional like herding dogs and tried to herd 6 cats, I think it was, and they just couldn't do it.
Yeah, just 6.
The cats are like, we will not be herded. What if? What if? And I think that was what Jesus was doing. He was here
Trying to
saying,
make
no,
sense.
be a cat, be a spiritual cat in this, metaphor. Like, be a nonconformist. Like,
Because the kingdom
be
of God is
different,
within
is within you.
you.
Your
Get to
connection
decide.
to God. And if you look at what he taught and what he did, like he was not going to conform.
He was always pushing the buttons
Oh,
of
he
the
loved it. He's like, let's
conformist.
go. Who are the most conformists? It's the Sadducees, the Pharisees, the Sanhedrin. Let's go push those guys' buttons.
Let's do the
Like,
things they hate.
He loved it. Oh man, he loved it. And it was so awesome. You're like, well, I'm okay. If I'm genuinely trying to be more like Jesus, I have to resist authority, conformity, institutions, governments, organizations. Now, is it resisting just for the sake of resisting? No. It has to be thoughtful, it has to be purposeful. And sometimes very often you'll find rules and traditions and institutions like, oh, this is really good. This is helpful. It should
Right.
stay in place.
That's walking the labyrinth, I think, where you come back to it and you realize this makes complete sense. I see why this is a
Yeah.
rule in society or a rule in religion. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But and yes, I know some people are going to say, well, that's about having faith, like having faith and trusting that others know. Okay, I get that.
Maybe, but
And you
most
don't
of the
have
time,
to make all the mistakes yourselves. And you know what I'm saying? Like, yes, 100%. But in some ways, I think that's why we have an imagination so that we can at least mentally go there and learn the lessons and make that our own belief or rule as opposed to just always taking it by faith
right?
from everyone else. And some
Because
people,
have
that's their
faith,
gift. Maybe that's their
but
thing.
still, the way it's often taught, have faith. It's an excuse to compensate for ignorance and naivete because we don't want to walk the labyrinth. We don't want to face the scary things. We don't want to do the hard work that's individual. And so we just say, we'll just have faith. Like, no, face the abyss. Like, figure it out. Wrestle with it. You look at, again, like I'll go to the scriptures and look at the stories of real faith in there. They weren't like, well, just have faith.
Right. Well, because as you're saying this, and as I think about my own life, yeah, you're right. It wasn't having faith about the blind obedience things that was really helpful. It was when I was willing to ask the hard questions and come up against things that are terrifying and then still not being able to find an answer, that's, I think, when faith really counts because you're like, wow, here I am at this abyss. I'm at the edge, and you want me to step off, right? It's like Peter walking on water, right?
Mhm.
You want me to get out of this boat and step into the water?
Well, he wanted to.
He did.
That's what's
But
amazing.
some of us, we're not like Peter and we don't want to. We're like, oh, no, I'll stay in the boat, please. Thank you. you know, that to me is when the faith really counts. When it's like God is calling you to do things that doesn't make
To get
sense
out of the boat.
to get
And
out of the
all the
boat.
religions were sitting in the boat and saying, no, 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 I'm just going to have faith. It's
Right.
good. I have faith
Right.
that I could. They're like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. He's not saying you can sit in the boat and exercise your faith.
Right.
The
You have
exercise
to
of faith is to get your butt out
get
of the boat.
out.
Yeah.
And that to me is when it's most challenging and requires the most faith because as we think about going back to the kingdom of God is within me, ultimately that is the guide I need to be developing, that connection, that individual connection. And if it tells me to do something that seems contrary to religion, contrary to conformity, contrary to status quo, contrary to whatever, that's scary ground because now you're the heretic, now you're the apostate, now you're the blasphemer, now
And
you're the whatever.
there is a real danger in that because if I'm uneducated, uninformed, undisciplined, I am following my just the indulgences of my body, and then I'm like, I just feel like I should do things different. Then I'm just gonna respond to the lusts and desires of the body. And that's going to lead to destruction, which is clearly evident. I think, okay, this is a really, really important part. When you start questioning convention, you have to do it with such a thorough search. You have to read the greatest thinkers and teachers and leaders of all time. And then you find even like Will and Ariel Durant, who were full on humanists, who called people were just trousered apes. But they, in studying history, they wrote the story of civilization. They realized that just going off your whims for sexual desire is an absolute recipe for destruction, not in
Society.
lives and families, but societies. Entire civilizations will collapse if we just run after our sexual desires. So then when you're sitting there, I should question
The rules of my religion or society.
chastity and purity. You know what? I'm going to question this. So I'm just going to go out and have sex ravenously. You idiot. All you had to do is read a book to realize that won't work or look around. Like you got to open your eyes before you just run off the edge.
Right.
Like, I don't believe in this gravity crap. And so you run off the cliff and you're like, shoot, I should have read about this or
Yes.
noticed other people that fell off the cliff
Right.
before me. You get what I'm saying?
Of course.
So like people are like,
absolutely.
well, I'm going to try drugs and alcohol. I'm going
All
all
in.
out. I'm going to be a nonconformist.
right.
Like, dummy, that test has already been taken.
Well, and that's why, no, you're 100% right. And that's why I like the idea that we have imaginations and we have access to books and history and like all these other things. Like we can learn by learning from others. For me, that's one of the reasons why I'll watch movies that are inappropriate or whatever, because it's helping me see, oh, this is what happens if you live that life. You know what I'm saying? It's another learning
To be
tool.
clear, you're not watching some trash hole movie.
Yeah, I'm not
You're
watching like
You're watching a movie that has a great moral lesson, but includes realities of the dark side of life.
right.
So
exactly.
it has a good thing. It's not, it's like there's books and movies and songs, whatever, that are bent or broken and they're just evil and the intent is evil. Then what you're talking about is like these ones that it's dark, it's hard, it addresses issues that are challenging and you face things that are disturbing.
Yes.
That's why you watch them because like, okay, instead of experiencing this,
Right. Like I don't have to go out and do
Right.
it myself. I can watch. Oh, here's what happens when a person chooses this lifestyle and this is the outcome. That's the point of books like the classics, right?
exactly.
We're going through the classics with our children and a lot of these books are just downright
They
depressing.
end
and horrible.
miserably because that's
That's
reality.
the point.
Yeah.
Like these writers were trying to teach us here is what happens. My concern,
And they make you cry and weep and hurt while you
and
read them.
and get disturbed.
Yeah.
My concern is for the people who aren't even willing to read the books. Because
Well, they're
in
just depressing, babe, and they're
and they're
disturbing.
inappropriate. Like, you teach a class for teens, and in the class, you guys read books and discuss them. And we've literally had parents messaging us saying, "Why are you having my child read this book?"
That happened to be a World War II
Right.
book of
It was a
a
book about World War
survivor
II,
out of
and she was almost
Auschwitz.
raped and like all the
Well,
almost raped. Wasn't even
she
raped.
but she says this is what happened. She's just
Right.
telling her story, and they're
Right.
like, "Oh, this is inappropriate. I don't want my kid to read this." You're like, "This actually happened."
This happened to a teenager, right? Your child's age, it happened to them. It's better for them
Yeah.
to read about it
Than to
than it
experience
is
it
to actually
because of
experience
their
it.
naivete.
Yes.
Yes, and
So
their
this is
ignorance.
one of the things, as we're bringing this up, that I'm talking about with being willing to walk the labyrinth.
Yeah.
Walking the labyrinth doesn't mean actually doing it all yourself. You don't have to go out and get raped. You don't have to go out and do drugs. You don't have to go out and be a prostitute. But you can read about all of those things. You can watch movies about them, and it will still be uncomfortable for you, but it will help you to walk the labyrinth.
And with faith and religion, you don't have to abandon your faith or your religion to walk the labyrinth and question it all.
Yeah. And to
Challenge it all.
question all the aspects of your
Yeah.
religion. You can still do that and remain in your religion.
And then find out, here's a perfect example. Because we, in our family, we love doing scholarly research on especially the Bible and religious studies. And you dive in deep and you realize some of these stories in the Bible that
Well, I just want to add as you're doing that, because I want people to understand that also includes, like right now, our daughter Aaliyah, who's 18, and I've already read them, is reading the Upanishads, which is the Hindu
they're
scriptures.
so good.
She's read the Bhagavad Gita, which I've also read
Excellent.
both of them, and she's read the Dhammapada, and she just ordered the Tao Te Ching. We're still also reading all of those things. Yes, we're digging into the
We should.
Bible, and we love
And
that.
we should read all the religious texts
We're
of the
also
world.
really reading other religious texts and other just all sorts of texts.
Yes, all the time. So what happened is you dig into scholarship, and like in the Old Testament, they're like, yeah, that story never happened. It's a fictional story. But if you grew up in a religion that taught you that everything in the Bible is literal and every character was real and did exactly what was written there, all it takes is a little bit of understanding the Hebrew, understanding the ancient culture, understanding who the authors were, and all the unknowns, and then digging into history, realize that's not a real story. But all of a sudden it's like,
it's like the evolution thing.
it's not
for me.
real. And so then you feel like your faith is unraveling if those aren't actual characters.
With literal, true stories.
It's almost as naive as saying, wait, Jesus taught parables? There
They
wasn't
will?
actually
A prodigal son?
the prodigal son. Yeah, exactly. What? The prodigal son isn't a real person?
He's fictional?
There goes my faith. It's like, no, the story's still true.
True and this is what changed
It's fictional,
for me.
but true.
Because, yeah, you can have something be true that's not literally
Factual.
true.
Yeah.
It's a meta truth.
Yep.
We can watch a movie. We can read a book, like one of your favorite books, Les Mis.
Right.
It's not
It's fictional.
actually true. It's fictional,
Yeah.
and yet it's still true. It's a meta truth.
And it's as silly as me saying, wait, Jean Valjean wasn't a real person in France?
I can't believe
This is a lie. This whole book is a lie. And now my favorite book gets thrown out because it's all a lie.
Right.
And yet that's one of the most true books I think ever written.
Right.
And is truer to life and the story of humanity than most all other books. And yet it's completely fictional.
Mm-hmm.
Those characters aren't real, but they represent meta-truths and archetypes. And so they're true. And so and you can do that even with your faith and say, wait a minute, you mean Moses probably wasn't a real person? You mean Jonah didn't actually get swallowed by a whale?
It's more like Pinocchio story.
Wait, God wasn't actually there with the devil saying, let's see how we can test this guy. You with me? It's like, wait a minute, what if those are just fictional stories that we're told to teach beautiful truths? You're like, wait, it's still true, even if it's fictional.
So one of the other things that keeps coming to my mind that I think I want to talk about, because especially when you are bringing up, because I'm talking about, oh, if you're listening to your inner guide and it's telling you to do things, and now I'm like, I'm off doing drugs or sleeping around, whatever. What came to mind was the idea of something we talk about, which is the fringe. And we actually got this idea from watching the Exodus series with Jordan Peterson, which also includes Dennis Prager, who's Jewish. And I think it has Ben Shapiro in it sometimes. But anyways, they were
Well,
talking
and
about,
an atheist guy and
yeah, there's
religious
an
scholars.
atheist. Yeah,
It's
they have all
phenomenal.
kinds of scholars there, which makes it such an incredible discussion where they're actually discussing these things. They're diving into it. They're asking questions. They're having doubts. They're saying, well, what about this? Like they're not afraid to address the difficult questions. But they take this idea from the Old Testament of this piece of clothing that the Jews, Orthodox Jews, will wear that at the bottom has a fringe. And they were talking about how it's important in the society that we operate in our institutions, in our religions, in our systems, that we leave room for the fringe. Dennis Prager, the Jewish man, say it. That's why we have the fringe on our garments. It reminds us that we need room for the fringe. And what the fringe represents,
Well, I just look at the definition. Go
yeah,
ahead.
well, read it
So
first.
the actual definition, at least here, it says it's the border or outer edges
Mhm.
of an area or a group,
Yeah.
right? Not part of the mainstream, unconventional,
Mhm.
peripheral, or extreme.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Exactly. I love that, and that's actually perfect.
I like that.
And even one of the traditions they would have is that, say, when they're harvesting the fields, they would always leave things at the fringe, at the edges. They would leave the grain, so that provided provision for the needy, the widows, the beggars, like people who are not within the mainstream of society. They had this fringe to help provide for them, right? So, one of the things that we talk about is that there needs to be room for the fringe, but there are also two different fringes. There's the lower fringe, and then there's the upper fringe. And so, it's almost like in society, the lower fringe is the people living unconventionally. They're living outside of the norm. They're not conforming, but they're also not thriving. Like they're suffering, they're poor. If you're outside of the economic fringe, you're poor. You're
Well,
living in poverty.
and uneducated,
You're
and
uneducated.
it's
You are living
it's
in
it's
you
the
don't have a
living at
family
the
support.
basest
Single
levels.
moms.
Yeah,
It's like that's the lower fringe in a way.
that are just barely
Yeah,
surviving.
barely getting by.
But they also have a hard time understanding bigger concepts, and I mean, they're just
Well,
in a
because
lot
of
of
a
ways
lack of education
they're
as well.
infants, and they're just
Imitate
barely
parents.
coming into understanding
Right.
and wrapping their heads
Yeah.
around things.
So this is when and why and what we mean when we say that's why there is a need for the conventions. There's a need for religion. There's a need for public
Schools.
school. There's a need for these institutions because that helps to bring up the lower fringe and bring more education, bring more economic stability, bring more
Spirituality, more personal
spirituality,
development.
more discipline to your life,
Yeah.
more of the things that actually help you not just survive, but thrive a little bit.
Mhm.
But then as you move through that, I don't know if we want to look at this as like a tree. That could be a good example. So you have the roots, the lower fringe, and then you have the trunk, and then you have the branches. The upper fringe is kind of what we're talking about here. Was as we're walking through all of these different things, all the things we're saying to us, that's the unconventionality on the upper fringe. You don't have to go down and live in quote unquote sin and
And
do
squalor
drugs
and
and
suffering.
squalor and
Yeah.
be poor, live in poverty. You don't have to do that in order to get out of the conventionality, to get out of the system.
This is so beautiful to me because as we talk about, questioning things, a lot of people think questioning means going
Yeah.
back down.
It's like going down
Um,
to live the
uh,
hippie lifestyle.
yep.
Not that I'm not degrading hippies, right? Because we lived the hippie lifestyle. But most often, what I see is when people leave society and they leave the conventions, it's more like the hippie life, which is where we started as well. We left society, we left its conventions, we went to the hippie lifestyle because it's a way of living outside of the system.
Mhm.
That's why you talk about becoming that classidelic bohemian erudite. Like, Bohemian comes from the word Bohemia, which came from the gypsies
It's
in
getting
Bohemia.
outside of the crowd.
It's outside of society,
Or
right?
what one author called the unthinking herd.
Yes. But it's not in, say, the lower fringe of the actual gypsy, because we're here in Portugal. There are gypsies that live around here, and they live outside of society. And it's actually very sad because they're limited in what they can do because they don't have birth certificates
They don't
or
have education. They don't
licenses. They
have
don't have
homes.
education. They're
It's so sad.
literally just barely surviving
Mm.
and existing. You can be, and that's where bohemian comes from the gypsies, but you can be that bohemian, but the classedelic, like you're living at a higher level in the higher fringe because of education, because of pursuit of personal growth, because of development of intuition and spirituality. You move up through, and that's where we're saying those things are beneficial because you and I have gained benefit by participating in religion.
Mhm.
It has been a good thing in our life. But as we move through that, we do come to the other side of the fringe where, in a way, you leave the institutions behind. Not that they lose their purpose or role in society, but maybe in an individual life,
Well,
they lose some
I,
of their
I guess what I'm saying is
importance.
you eventually move past checking the boxes.
Yes, from transactional.
Sometimes checking the boxes helps people.
It helps you develop
At the entry level, you help people with structure and patterns and
Absolutely.
new habits and new frameworks
Yes.
and new way of being. But then at some point, you do
You
have to
leave
move
behind
through checking the
the checklist.
boxes. And it's not to say that you stop with the good habits. The good habits must remain. The higher values must remain. And in fact, and this is so important, when you go to the upper fringe, you're actually living by higher standards.
Yes.
That is absolutely critical. Anybody listening to this has to get that in.
Right.
When what we're talking about, leaving the herd, out the higher fringes, questioning everything, we're talking about living by much, much higher standards.
Yes.
So if you leave conventional education, it's because you want a world-class education. If you leave conventional medicine, it's because you want absolutely phenomenal health. You want to outlive everybody. If you leave, quote, conventional religion, it's because you're on this spiritual journey of absolute purity and oneness with God. Like, we're talking about questioning to go out the top and live by higher standards.
Right. Because it no longer is about the transactional checking the boxes. It's the transformation where that becomes your way of being.
Yeah.
That's why you stop checking the boxes, because
It's
you
who
are
you are.
already living it.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's who you are. So you don't have to check the box because you just do it automatically.
Right.
Yeah, I love
You
that.
don't have to set a reminder to be spiritual because you are
Living
spiritual.
spiritually. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
It's so powerful. It's so
It is.
beautiful. So is there a place for school, medicine, church, religion? Yes, of course. All of that. There's some of you, I hope those of you listening are saying, okay, wait a minute. I want something better than what's offered in traditional school. I want something more. I want greater health than what's available in traditional medicine. I want deeper spirituality and faith, and even I'd say religion, which is the practice of your spirituality, than what's being offered as a basic serving sadly, in most churches, where it's pretty weak, it's watered down, and it's sad. I know I'm shooting at sacred cows again here, but like, is your church really, truly like showing up?
transforming people.
Standing up for what's right, or is it just filled with cowardice and conformity, wanting so desperately to be nice and fit in and be liked by everybody? I don't find any prophet anywhere in scripture who went around trying to be liked by everybody and only said very nice things. And all of his speech went through the PR department first and the HR department to make sure nobody would be offended. And then we just say it so nicely that, nope, we're not going to take a hard stand on any issue because I don't want to. What's the backlash? These prophets were calling them out, man. They were madmen. Where are those guys?
Yeah.
Where are those? I'm dead serious. Like, come on.
Maybe Eric Metaxas. He's
starting to do it.
He's doing it.
And Jordan Peterson was doing it.
Absolutely.
So, question all of it. and come back to what Rachel is saying and what I love to say is like, nobody can do your push-ups for you. Not mentally, educationally, not spiritually, not in your relationships, not in your health. Like, you have to own it and you have to question the narratives. You got to stop drinking the Kool-Aid. And as we have said this whole time, there is risk. There's real risk. If you step away from convention, you remove your safety net. If you step away from traditional education, you're left with the education you earn or help your kids earn. If you step away from modern medicine, you're left with your own results from your, challenging your faith or your religion, your spirituality. Like, you better be able to produce better results. That's what I tell my kids. This has been our conversation for 23 years. If we step away from traditional education, we better be able to produce better results. Because if we just step away and then our kids are worse off, like,
We failed.
that's an epic failure because
Mhm.
like it's below mediocrity in the
Below
public system. Like, if
the
we
status
can't
quo.
beat that, golly, it's so important to realize that what's being offered as a whole is the bare minimum. That's what it is. A lot of us think I've arrived. It's like, no, that's the bare minimum. Checking the boxes is the bare minimum. The real life, real living is far above that. Okay. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. Reach upward.